used on May 19, 2022. Would the clerk please take roll?
Jonathan Shelkey. Here. Jerry DiTullio.
Here.
Christine Disney.
Here.
Julianne Stern.
Here.
Will Kearns.
Here.
Daniel Larson.
Here.
Janet Leo. Here. And Melissa Ann Toll is absent tonight.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I move that we approve the order of the agenda for May 19th, 2022.
Is there a second? Who seconded it?
I don't know.
Okay. We have a
Mr.
motion for
Kearns
approval
did.
and a second by Janet. Please poll the council. Please poll the board. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2020?
Motion passed
Sorry.
7-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2022?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Please poll the commission.
Mr. DiTullio, can you please vote? Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. I have to read a few things into the record for the meeting tonight. I ask that if you have a cell phone, please turn off your cell phone or silence them for the meeting. Good evening. Thank you for all joining us. Just a few notes about our meeting format. Tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held in person and online. Commissioners, Planning Department staff, and members of the public are attending in the Weaver City Hall and also by way of Zoom platform. Members of the public who are not present and wish to make comments may participate virtually by joining through Zoom, either on a device or by calling in. A Zoom meeting link and dial-in information can be found on the weaverspeaks.org. In addition to being online via Zoom, we are also broadcasting this meeting on Channel 8 and Weaver Speaks. When it's time for public comment, there are 3 public comment periods tonight. We'll do 2 at the beginning. Those who wish to comment on our Zoom connection use the raise your hand button. If you are dialing in, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute your phone. If you plan on speaking tonight, please keep background noise to a minimum. If you do not plan to speak, we recommend you simply by viewing live by watching Channel 8 on Weaver Speaks. We appreciate your participation in tonight's meeting. We hope to create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue, and we appreciate your help in this process. So what we're going to do tonight, there's a study session for 44th Avenue, and we're also a general public comment. We're going to take both those comments so the public doesn't have to wait. So if you're here to speak tonight on any item not on the agenda or 44th Avenue, the sub-area plan, please step forward and state your name and your address for the record. Do we have anybody in here in the chambers that wants to speak on anything on the agenda, not on the agenda, or 44th Avenue? Seeing none, we'll move to the Zoom. Do we have any?
There is a few people on Zoom. If you would, looks like nobody's calling in, so if you would like to raise your hand and speak, please do so at this time. Nobody is currently raising their hand.
So we have no one to speak one more time on public comment or 44th Avenue sub-area plan? Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. I will now open the public hearing for case number WZ 20-01, an application filed by Brandt Hospitality Group, Inc. for approval of a specific development plan for a Hampton Inn Hotel on a property zone planned mixed-use development and located at 4025 Clear Creek Drive. What I'll do is if you're going to speak tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. I'll swear everybody in at once, including staff, if you're going to make any comment. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you. You're all sworn in. We'll go on to the staff presentation.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Stephanie Stevens, and I'm a planner in the Community Development Department at the City of Wheat Ridge. I'm presenting case number WZ2001, which is a request for approval of a specific development plan for a 70,217 square foot, 4-story hotel on 3.59 acres at 4025 Clear Creek Drive. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, and this digital presentation. The property is within the city of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met. Therefore, Planning Commission has jurisdiction to hear this case. The subject site is located on the west side of Clear Creek Drive, south of the Clear Creek Drive and 40th Avenue intersection within Planning Area 7 of Clear Creek Crossing. The west side of Clear Creek Drive is entirely vacant currently, but several land use applications are in for building permit review. The recently approved Outlook Phase 2 apartment site is located to the northwest. The SCL Hospital and Outlook Phase 1 apartments are located over to the east across Clear Creek Drive, and the primary retail corner is slated east of the site at the southeast corner of 40th Avenue and Clear Creek Drive. A user has not yet been identified for the lot directly southwest, but the Lifetime site is just south of that. The internal roadway system and utility infrastructure connecting Hampton and Lifetime are on the west side of Clear Creek Drive, are moving through the permit process, and will likely be constructed in the summer of 2022. Coors Pond lies directly to the west. The subject site is located on the northern portion of Clear Creek Crossing Plan Development in Planning Area 7, which is also called the Harvest District, denoting this area as a commercial sub-district of the development. The site is surrounded by mixed use and commercial plan development zoning to the north, west, and south. This request for SDP approval is the second step in a two-part process pertaining to plan developments. First step occurred in 2018 when Planning Commission and City Council approved the Clear Creek Crossing Plan Mixed Use Outline Development Plan, which established the zoning. The zone change also included approval of a vision book that establishes the intended design and architectural themes and materials, as well as a design pattern book that includes the more substantive development regulations. An Architectural Control Committee, or ACC, was established specifically for Clear Creek Crossing development to ensure compliance with the design pattern book, third-party review, consistency across the planned project, and to conduct schematic design review prior to the city's planning review. It's comprised of members of both the developer and city. The ACC has provided their recommendation of approval, which is attached in your staff report. The applicant is requesting to build a 70,217 square foot 4-story hotel on 3.59 acres. It's in Planning Area 7, or the Harvest District of Clear Creek Crossing, which includes the subject site. And I'll show all of this that's outlined on the screen in more detail in the next few slides. But the site does take into consideration adequate vehicular access, planning area connectivity, connections to the trail, and pedestrian connections to the north and south. Starting with access, this is an overall circulation plan for the west side. 2 access points are proposed into the site, one at the frontage along Clear Creek Drive and the other to the private roadway system to the southwest. The southern access connects to an internal drive that aligns with West 40th Avenue and acts as an extension of West 40th Avenue to serve all properties on the west side of the development. The northern access aligns or intersects with Clear Creek Drive and aligns with the internal drive that connects across the street to the hospital. So, in that location. A shared access connection is also provided to the south and to the west to provide that planning area connectivity. The site will also connect to the planned trail network on the west side. The building is located central to the site and surrounded by a looped drive and parking. The SDP reflects 140 proposed parking spaces, including 5 accessible spaces and 20 bike parking spaces. The parking surrounds the building and is screened from Clear Creek Drive by landscaping. The Denver Water easement traverses the site along Clear Creek Drive, so this big easement there, which limits development in this area but allows for parking. Bike parking is split between the 3 locations near the building, near the trail, and along Clear Creek Drive. The amount of parking provided complies with the design pattern book. In terms of building orientation, there are no build to requirements in planning area 7 within the Harvest District because of the grades and because of the Denver water easement. A 20-foot setback is required along all sides. Setback requirements are imposed by the design pattern book, and the hotel complies with these standards. The primary building entry faces to the east, and usable areas for residents, hotel residents, lies on the west side. The SDP also complies with all grading, drainage, utilities, and traffic plans for the overall Clear Creek Crossing development. And sanitary sewer and water service will be provided by Applewood Sanitation District and Consolidated Mutual Water Company, respectively. All internal site utilities will be privately owned and maintained by the Longs Peak Metro District and will be placed in utility easements, which are generally located beneath the drive aisles. On this map, the site has been oriented with north to the right. The project meets the minimum requirements for 20% of the gross lot size to be landscaped by utilizing perimeter landscaping, parking lot landscape islands, streetscape trees, and more formal planting beds near the building. A retaining wall borders the site to the southwest, starting approximately here, that's approximately 5 foot tall at its highest point, to be constructed to avoid steep slopes and provide a safe transition to the trail. Trail connections are proposed along the west side of the site and will be constructed by the master developer, Evergreen, under separate permit. The architectural style is driven by the Clear Creek Crossing Design Pattern Book and Vision Book, which calls for the modern agrarian aesthetic that blends traditional agrarian forms and materials with the modern feel. It also requires strong attention to be paid to the pedestrian realm. The building is proposed to be approximately 57.5 feet tall, and the architecture is comprised of primarily brick, stone, wood, and cementitious siding with ephes accents on the upper stories. The materials carry over on all sides of the building, resulting in four-sided architecture. The building contains a stone base to enhance the pedestrian realm, wooden awnings with corbels to enhance the entries, and ties into the agrarian theme. The western elevation incorporates similar stone and brick elements and wood accents as the front to improve the view from the trail. Overall facade transparency on the street-facing facade meets the requirements of the design pattern book. An analysis of the architecture in compliance with these standards is provided in that attached specific development plan. This is the north and south elevations. The facade on the north, which is the one on the right side, will be highly visible to Clear Creek Drive and does meet those transparency requirements. Since Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies as well as completed our internal review. We did not receive objections from outside agencies, and coordination with those districts is ongoing. Civil construction documents are nearing approval, and the plat is currently under review. A recommended condition of approval has been recommended to require the development agreement along with the SDP, mainly to memorialize the obligation for public improvements. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners and residents within a 600-foot radius. The project was posted also to Wheat Ridge Speaks. One comment was received on Wheat Ridge Speaks related to the perceived departure from the overall vision of Clear Creek Crossing. I'll let Evergreen respond to this comment during questions and answers, but to address it briefly, we do have the regulatory tools in place, and it just will take time to get there, but the vision is there, and we have the zoning as well. So with that, staff finds that the SDP is consistent with the ODP and is in compliance with all standards set forth of the ODP, Clear Creek Crossing Design Pattern Book, and City Code. The SDP is consistent with the purpose of a planned development, and all agencies can serve the property. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the specific development plan, WZ 2001, with the condition to require a development agreement. And the applicant is also here and plans to make a presentation, and then we are both here for questions after. Thank you.
Thank you. Presentation by the applicant. Please come up. State your name and address for the record, and speak into the mic because it's clearly, please. I'm going to have to adjust it. because you're a taller person. Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you for having us tonight. My name is John Heiberger. Address is 720 Vista Verde Heights, Monument, Colorado. I am with Kimley Horn and Associates, and I will be presenting this evening on behalf of Brant Hospitality Group. Brant Hospitality Group is pleased to have the opportunity to present the Hampton Inn Suites project at Clear Creek Crossing. We are a hospitality company with decades of hotel development and operating experience. Our goal is to drive growth through inspired service. Hospitality isn't just what we do, it's who we are. Launching in 2018, Brant Hospitality came out of the gate strong. COVID led to many challenges for our industry and delays in our development. We are back on track and excited about our upcoming growth. We currently operate one hotel in Thornton on the north side of Denver and have 3 more builds starting in 2022. This Hampton Inn Suites in Wheat Ridge, the Fairfield Inn Suites in Central Park, Denver, and the Home 2 Suites in Thornton, Colorado. The expectation for our hotels is to impress guests and maintain guest scores in the top 5% for every brand we operate. Our commitment to excellence ensures strong relationships with our brand partners, keeping both our development pipeline and our award shelf full. In the first quarter of 2022, Brant Hospitality Group was the highest performing management company for Marriott with over 100 companies of similar size. Out of 101 Marriott AC hotels in North America, our AC in Portland, Beaverton, Oregon is ranked #1 with guests. Our element in Portland, Beaverton is friendly to the environment and welcoming to long-term guests. Our Residence Inn in Providence, Rhode Island, is an award-winning property that meets every need a guest could have. The Staybridge Suites in Thornton delivers on a great guest experience and performs well enough that we are building another hotel directly across the road. So why do we want to be a part of Clear Creek Crossing? Brant Hospitality Group is committed to the greater Denver market. West Denver needs new hotel supply. The economic drivers in the area are strong. Wheat Ridge is a gateway to the mountains. Our hotel will complement the coming restaurants and entertainment while serving the new hospital. Your high expectations for developers ensures we are surrounded with good neighbors. Finally, we believe in this development. Our design has been thoughtfully focused on ensuring that we meet all expectations of the development and that the design meets compliance with the Clear Creek Crossing Design Pattern Book. The project creates a clear path of travel for all means of transportation and includes publicly accessible amenities. Pedestrian and bicycle connectivity was an important factor in the site design. The Clear Creek Regional Trail proposed with this project has been made an integral part of the surrounding development by connecting Clear Creek Drive to the rest of the Harvest District via a multi-use trail. The project provides pedestrian connectivity throughout the site that links Clear Creek Drive to the Clear Creek Regional Trail. Benches along the trail are deliberately placed with the image for the surrounding areas. Bicycle parking is provided throughout the site, along the multi-use trail, and along Clear Creek Drive. The building orientation on the site provides scenic views of the Coors Pond and the Front Range skyline for 50% of the guest units, as well as the amenity areas, including the fitness room, the pool room, and the outdoor patio. The project utilizes an enhanced landscape and site furnishing design. The site provides over 20% open space, which is in compliance with the minimum requirement for the Harvest District. Additionally, the site lighting fixtures and illumination were intentionally designed to complement the lighting of the surrounding development. The photometric plan, which is included in the SDP package, provides substantial lighting for the parking areas and pedestrian paths, while limiting light pollution and intrusion onto other neighboring properties. Site furnishings have been selected in accordance with the design intent and theme of the design pattern book. The Hampton Inn Suites provides development continuity and a sense of place through building design. The building was designed with the modern agrarian design aesthetic of the development in mind and provides coherence with the landscape while accentuating the view corridor to the Coors Pond and the Front Range skyline. The height of the building was kept 8 feet shorter than the maximum height allowed, which limits the effect on the view for the neighboring developments. The hotel height is similar to the height of the Lifetime Fitness Center at the southeast corner of the pond. The similar heights of these two buildings complement each other as anchors for the Harvest District. A pedestrian-friendly street environment was emphasized with over 40% of the facade facing public right-of-way, being transparent to encourage pedestrian traffic throughout the site. The project utilizes a variety of materials to comply with the design pattern book. These materials include natural look, river rock, stone veneer, brick, and ephes in soft natural colors with contrasting fiber cement panel siding representing dark-toned wood. The building is grounded by the natural stone base. Building corners are accented by the contrasting brick veneer, which provides visual anchors for each elevation. The long east and west facades are articulated by building massing with varying parapet heights and cornice projection details, as well as differentiating materials and colors. The primary building entry location at the east elevation is emphasized by projection in building massing, use of the contrasting brick, and an architectural wood roof canopy feature. This entrance is further designated by a drive-under canopy with decorative wood cornice detailing to complement the roof structure. This canopy provides a clear, identifiable entry point for guests, while it provides shade and enhances the pedestrian experience. Similarly, secondary building entry locations at the north and south are emphasized by extending the grounding stone base vertically to the third floor line and repeating the architectural wood canopy feature at the roof. With the north elevation facing Clear Creek Drive, additional detailing was provided. The wood look siding is used at the upper levels in lieu of ephes, and an additional building projection with architectural wood canopy at the first level provides improved pedestrian scale and connectivity. The west elevation is the main view from the trail. The single-story pool building increases human scale for this facade. The central brick tower with an architectural wood canopy feature at the roof provide visual interest for pedestrians on the trail, as well as provides a cohesive, consistent design around all four sides of the building. Inside the hotel, our front desk area will feature a welcome message designed to share the spirit of the surrounding community. Interior finishes are both modern and warm. Our gathering space features large windows to bring in natural light. Guests will be able to enjoy amenities such as complimentary coffee and breakfast, market, fitness room, and indoor pool. Everything about the Hampton Inn Suites is designed to make guests feel welcomed and comfortable, including our well-appointed rooms that meet the needs of families and business travelers alike. In closing, Brent Hospitality Group does not take its commitment to your community or our team lightly. We bring a high level of integrity and a spirit of hospitality wherever we choose to grow. We are excited for this opportunity to make the Hampton Inn Suites a part of the Clear Creek Crossing development and look forward to answering any questions and presenting to the commission here tonight. If approved, we would like to break ground in late summer of 2022 and open the hotel in the fall of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get the spelling of your last name, please?
Sure, it's Heiberger.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the applicant group before we go on to questions?
No.
Thank you. So to my right, if you have any questions on this side of the dais, please turn your mic on and raise your hand if you have any questions for the applicant or staff. Mr. Kearns?
Couple of questions about circulation, the internal roadway system on the parcel. I see a stub end on the south side. Is that gonna remain like a dead end, or is that just contingent on development on the next parcel, and then will the two developments be connected?
Yeah, great question. It is intended to provide cross connectivity, vehicular connectivity with the adjacent development. So we've coordinated that with Evergreen, the master developer.
Great. So the same goes for this one on the northwest side as well.
Correct.
Okay.
That will connect to a proposed apartment project to the northwest.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kearns. Commissioner Stearns?
Thank you. Staff suggested that the applicant group would be able to provide further comment on the comment that was left on Wheat Ridge Speaks about kind of consistency with the development vision on site. Can the applicant group please speak to that?
So we have Christine online on Zoom. Christine, do you mind responding to that comment, please?
No, not at all. Christine McRae, Evergreen Development, 1873, South Bel Air, Denver, 80222. My position is Director of Development for Evergreen DevCo. We are the master developer for Clear Creek Crossing. Certainly the residents' comments were valid, and with that, I believe that the outline provided for our intention of future development at the site was very accurate. You know, the challenge that we have had has been the economy, and particularly that which is associated with COVID. I would say in the end, we're very pleased that we have not shifted direction in terms of our intended tenant lineup at the site. It's simply we've reshuffled the order in which they came to the site for development. So what you see today is very much an anchor-based development, and SCL certainly anchoring overall on a 26-acre large parcel, and Lifetime Development to the south on 111,000 square feet building, three-story building. I really believe that the integrity of the vision that we set forth from the very beginning has been held up by the Architectural Control Committee as well as staff. We've worked very hard with all of the applicants to, in a way that is appropriate to their particular use, as well as the shape of buildings, to support a modern agricultural or agrarian design. In addition to that, given that this is a mixed-use development, pedestrian connectivity has been very important to our development plan. What you see today is not what you will see in 3-4 years from now. Right now, we're experiencing significant demand on parcels in between these anchors, which is really where the character and the connectivity of a mixed-use plan comes into play. So, our hopes are for a strong 22 leading into 23. And with that, you'll see a lot of the character forming elements that Ms. Teitelbaum outlined, including connectivity of the trail into and through the site, as well as unique restaurants, plazas for gathering, and certainly art that will support the modern agrarian direction of Clear Creek Crossing. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you. That was very helpful. One specific question that came from that comment, there was some part of the comment that addressed grade differences between the development parcels and the trail. Can you comment on whether there's a grade difference between the parking lot, the trail, and kind of the natural environment beyond?
Yeah, most certainly there is. So, the challenge in developing Clear Creek Crossing has been that it's a new development associated with fixed points. So fixed points in the eventual interchange with Highway 58 to the north, a fixed point to the existing 40th Avenue Bridge, as well as the future ramps that connect to I-70, and then of course on the south to 32nd Avenue and on the west to the existing Coors Ponds. And so with that, there's definitely a grade that tapers upgrade to the north, and so there's a natural difference in elevation between the apartments and the trail. With that, we worked with staff to create a tiered walling system that is landscaped to give it the most aesthetically pleasing look we could from the north. And then in addition, from the north, there is a trail connection to the regional trail as well as the Clear Creek Crossing Trail, providing pedestrian connectivity both east-west and north-south.
Thank you. No further.
You're welcome.
Thank you. To my left, commissioners, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Commissioner Larson.
Let's start with the folks at Brent, and I understand they're not here, but I'm not familiar with the company. Can you tell us if there are other Brent hospitality locations in the Denver area?
We actually do have a representative from Brant Hospitality, John. I can probably answer the question real quick, though. They do have a couple of others. I mentioned in the presentation in Thornton, they're working on building one right across from the Home 2 Suites that's already there. And then we're doing another one in the Central Park area of Denver, which will come online, probably start construction here later this year as well.
Will that be a Hampton as well?
That one in Denver is a Fairfield Inn Suites.
I'm sorry?
A Fairfield Inn Suites.
Oh, gotcha, thank you. And then I just a quick Google Map review, and it looks like, I understand the popularity of the Hampton brand, and it is very familiar, but between Denver and I think you go up to maybe as far north as Thornton, and then a little south, there are probably 7 Hampton Inns. Do you worry about maybe having, like, saturating the market a bit?
I will defer that question to John and allow you to chime in on that.
Please come on up and state your name and spell your last name for the record and your address for the minutes.
My name's John Dubois, D-U-B-O-I-S. Yep, 2864 Rivers Bend Drive.
Please speak into the microphone. I can't hear you.
You can raise it up if you need to. Everybody's getting taller as they stand there.
In West Barton. So yes, to answer your question, a lot of market research goes into the selection of the property, the selection of, I guess, in the business we call the flag. And so, no, we feel that, people are comforted by name recognition and the level of service that you get at a particular property, shows up in Google searches and other things on how well that property performs and treats its guests. So as a member of Brand Hospitality, we're pretty comfortable in what we do and how we treat our guests, and what you saw in the presentation tonight displays that with some of the accolades we've received.
Thank you, and the fact that it's located within direct eyesight of the interstate highway, I suppose that played into the decision?
Yes.
Thank you. I do have a couple of other questions, and one was on, it's actually for the our architect, please. When we looked at the grade for Lifetime, which is to the south, the new building there, when you come off the highway at the exit ramp and you're kind of looking directly at Lifetime, the property is actually about maybe 6 to 10 feet below the level of the street. Does the grade elevate as you go north, or will it be at kind of the same level?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There certainly is a grade difference between the Lifetime pad and the pad for this hotel. Clear Creek Drive does, progress, I believe, upward as you head towards the hotel. Our grading plan establishes the hotel just barely above the finished floor of the hotel, just barely above the elevation of the street for drainage purposes. But it's not anything substantial. So it's going to look pretty flat. The biggest challenge, I think, from a grade perspective on our pad was adjacent to the trail, sort of between the trail and the Coors Pond. We wanted to keep the trail, to one of the questions I was asked earlier, we wanted to keep the trail up at the elevation of the hotel and the drive aisles. And to achieve that, we've got a small retaining wall that was mentioned by staff between the trail and the pond in a limited area. But the overall site will look pretty flat when it's constructed.
Great, thank you. And then I did have a chance to look at the photometric study that you guys did. Can you very briefly go over what you found when you did photometrics on the site?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've designed the site with enough site lighting and building mounted lighting to provide a safe environment and to meet the needs of the hotel guests. And we've also paid attention to making sure that the trail is sufficiently covered with lighting without providing light pollution across the property line. We really wanted to make sure that the trail was inviting and was a safe place even at night. And so a lot of focus went into placement of the poles, the light poles around the site to make sure we had good coverage.
And the neighbors to the south, will the light shine on their backyards and whatnot?
No, we in fact are required to make sure that we don't have spillage across the property line. And I believe, when the additional parcels to the south of us get developed with the additional uses, they'll have to do a similar type of photometric study to make sure that they're not contributing light pollution across their line either.
Very good, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Shelkey?
Yeah, I had a couple questions about the phrase "the trail" keeps coming up. So how close to the Clear Creek Trail is the development?
So I'll go ahead and answer that one. The Clear Creek Trail actually, there's a connection that comes from Clear Creek Drive up north to the trail, as well as on the SCL parcel on the east side. The trail we keep referring to is the Prospect Trail, and that will border this site directly on the west side, as well as all adjacent developments to the south, connecting from the point where it comes through the neighborhoods and kind of through the golf course on the south side.
Does it connect to the Clear Creek Trail?
It does, yes. Once you keep going up through the apartment site, then you would eventually hit the Clear Creek Trail as well.
Will the trail be the same standards that the Clear Creek Trail was done?
So it'll be a 10-foot width multi-use path. Yes, it'll be under the same trail standards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So do we have any other presentations from staff or the applicant before we move on to public comment? Thank you. I will now open up the hearing for public comment. If you wish to comment on this case, you will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Speakers may not donate their time. Do we have anybody in the council chambers that wants to speak on this tonight from the public? Seeing none, do we have anybody from Zoom to speak on this tonight?
There are a couple people on there. If you would like to speak tonight, please raise your hand if you are online. Nobody is raising their hand at this time.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioner Disney, please make a motion.
I move to approve case number WZ20-01, a request for approval of a specific development plan for a Hampton Inn Hotel on property located within Planning Area 7 of the Clear Creek Crossing Plan Mixed-Use Development at approximately 4025 Clear Creek Drive for the following reasons. 1, the specific development plan is consistent with the purpose of a planned development as stated in Section 26-301 of the Code of Laws. 2, The specific development plan is consistent with the intent and purpose of the outlined development plan. 3, the proposed uses are consistent with those approved by the outlined development plan. 4, pardon me, all responding agencies have indicated they can serve the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. 5, the specific development plan is in substantial compliance with the applicable standards set forth in the outlined development plan and with the city's adopted design manuals, with the following conditions. 1, the developer shall enter into a development agreement with the city to be recorded with the city, county clerk and recorder. An associated financial guarantee shall be provided prior to issuance of building permits.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion for approval, seconded by Commissioner Leo. Any discussion on the main motion before we vote?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I would just like to remind the commission and the folks watching tonight is that on issues like this, on specific development plans, the Planning Commission is the final authority. This issue will not go to City Council. The decision we make tonight is final. What would the next steps be, though, I mean, after this?
So they are moving through the approval process or review process for civil construction plans, and once those are approved and the plat is also moving through that review, it's administrative, but then they will go to building permit, and then we'd see construction from there.
So we are nearing the point where there's going to be some ground broken, right?
That is correct, and currently, as an update, the west side of Clear Creek Drive does have a grading permit for the master developer to kind of start the basic grading work on that portion.
And I would just like to conclude by saying that I think the work that the architectural committee has done is outstanding, and the design that was submitted, I think, will be a suitable anchor really for this site, because this will be one of the more visible buildings after the hospital as you drive by, and I think that speaks very well for the Clear Creek Crossing project. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the community development team for a very succinct presentation tonight, and thank the applicant for a very succinct presentation. Looks great. And I know it's going to be a huge asset to that area of town, especially off of I-70 for skiers and tourists and everything else. So with that, please poll the commission. Oh, sorry. Anybody else like to make a comment? Commissioner Kearns?
Thanks. I don't know if this would be for Evergreen DevCo or for the city, but it seems like there's a nice opportunity for some wayfinding signage on the Prospect Trail to point tourists to the Clear Creek Trail. So that seems like a nice opportunity. And then for the Brant Hospitality Group, this looks like a terrific product. I can tell that you've put some attention into the details of this facility, and we're looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Disney?
Think this is really going to be a lovely addition to that Clear Creek Crossing. It's a very well thought out plan, and it's going to be a welcome addition. I'm excited to see it. I would like to encourage anybody watching this meeting and my fellow commissioners to take a walk on that development. I've walked my dog out there, and the trails are very easy to find, and it's very clear that the developer is developing this whole site according to what they said they would do. I attended those meetings early on, and it's coming together very nicely. It's going to be a very lovely development. It's pleasant to walk now with just the few buildings that are existing there. And the signage will be helpful, but I don't know that it's even necessary because the trails are pretty easy to understand. So thank you very much for the great presentation tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commission before we vote? Please poll the commission.
Motion approved, 7-0.
Thank you. Congratulations. So that's our only agenda item for our regular meeting tonight. Under new business, tonight we'll be discussing an update on the 44th Avenue sub-area plan with the presentation from staff and the consultant. This is not a public hearing, but instead is more similar to a study session item. So before we receive the presentation, we will take public comment related to 44th Avenue. We've already done that. So we're going to move right into the presentation by community development. Do you want us to take 5, or are you ready now? Thank you.
I'll just provide a brief introduction. For the record, I'm Stephanie Stevens, Planner in Community Development, and also the project manager for the long-awaited 44th Avenue sub-area plan. We're very excited to be here tonight, and the purpose of tonight's discussion with Planning Commission is to introduce the project to you all, update on the engagement and preliminary findings that we've had thus far, as well as discuss anything that's been missing, that may be perceived as missing from the conversation. City Council awarded contract to our planning consultant, MIG, in December of 2019. We had to put the project on hold for a little bit because of the pandemic and then need to prioritize the Lutheran campus master plan. But we got to restart back up in January of 2022, and the process will last through the end of this year. It will come to you as an amendment to our comprehensive plan at the end of this process, but we'll be back to see you again at another study session before then. And with that, I will hand it over to our consultants, Mark De La Torre and Jay Rankins with MIG, to go ahead and walk us through where we've come. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you all for your time this evening. We're really excited to be with you again. Again, I'm Jay Rankins, principal with MIG, principal in charge on this project. And Mark and I are going to give you a little overview of the project to date. I'm going to start out with the scope and schedule. Mark is going to go over existing conditions findings and the phase 1 engagement summary, as well as some key themes, and then we'll wrap up with summary and next steps. So our scope and schedule is really important to us when we do any planning project, particularly one of this nature, that it's really built on community input. So the overall community process is really essential. I'll provide you a little bit more detail moving forward here. Also, we wanted to think about the existing assets. This is not, very unlike what you were just talking about with Clear Creek Crossing. We're dealing with a well-established area, and so we want to understand what those existing assets are, existing challenges, and building upon those and leveraging the opportunities. We're focusing on land use and revisiting the regulatory framework through this effort. We're utilizing the economic development toolkit and prioritizing connections. It is important to note, because we've run into this with some of our focus groups, that the project is a sub-area plan. It's not just a corridor plan for 44th Avenue. In fact, 44th Avenue, we expect to have little change actually to the actual roadway configuration. There may be improvements at intersections. We would like to see the aesthetic improve, the pedestrian environment. But really we're looking at the larger area, which we'll show here in a second, but extending from Clear Creek north to I-70. The different project elements include a foundation, synthesis, and implementation. Within our foundation is existing conditions, visioning, and key trends and issues. We're nearing the end of that first kind of project element, the foundation. Beginning to look forward to that synthesis, where we're articulating goals and policies, opportunities analysis, and developing draft recommendations that would then be finalized and looked at in the implementation in terms of prioritization and funding. We're really looking at equal parts of sort of influencing that of technical quantitative analysis as well as community outreach, really taking those both inputs into the process. Within our technical quantitative analysis, which Mark will touch on a little bit, is the market study a economic opportunities analysis or potential for change, and then traffic study. Our outreach, as I mentioned, is multifaceted. Includes community meetings throughout the process. We've had one so far. It was actually an open house that we held jointly with the Let's Talk program. We've done one round of focus groups that include 4 different focus groups that Mark will speak to a little bit more. An advisory committee that's meeting throughout the process. There's been a few intercept events already, and we anticipate a lot more of those this summer, leveraging a lot of the great events that happen in Wheat Ridge, and then leveraging that What's Up Wheat Ridge platform. And then this is our really detailed schedule. Not expecting you to digest all of this, but probably most importantly is where that big yellow arrow is. We are nearing a halfway point in the overall timeline of the plan, but I think it's important to note that we're just kind of turning that corner, as I said, looking at articulating the goals, beginning to look at strategies and recommendations. So there is plenty of opportunity for the community, neighbors, business owners, property owners, as well as you all in council to influence the plan as it's beginning to develop here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. Mark Delatorre, 4345 Brentwood Street, Go Bel Air. Project boundary. So an important part of this in distinguishing a corridor plan from a sub-area plan is the interwoven nature of land use and major circulation systems. So in looking at the map, we have our project boundary set as I-70 as our north and western boundaries, and Clear Creek as our southern and eastern boundaries. Knowing that land use, individual sites are certainly something that's governed in a project area, but mobility does not stop at nice plan boundaries, right? So how people get to the site, the intra versus interconnectivity of the area is certainly something that's being explored through the process, and council underscored early on. When we start any planning process of this scale or this nature, we start with comprehensive plan to look what existing guidance is on the books for a particular sub-area. You can see here that a lot of the assets and foundational elements that are identified as part of the structure plan, which is intended to guide strategic future development for Wheat Ridge, are represented in this area, from neighborhoods and neighborhood buffer areas to a couple of key existing nodes around mixed-use commercial and employment. You'll see corridor designations for commercial corridors, both at the neighborhood and primary scale, as well as a few commercial centers distributed throughout. Other plan documentation, it's been a few years now, but the NRS, I don't need to tell you all about the NRS, but as it relates to this particular project, the priority recommendations that this project does a great job of implementing are around corridors and neighborhoods. One of those from the NRS was to complete a corridor plan for 44th Avenue from Wadsworth to Youngfield. We got close, right? But we are looking much more comprehensively as the interrelationship between the corridor and the surrounding land uses, existing neighborhoods, and the like. And on the neighborhood side, designing neighborhood appropriate based engagement. So it's taking the momentum and energy that the Let's Talk program first codified coming out of the NRS, and knowing that Fruitdale and Anderson Park are finishing up or had finished up their engagement blitzes as we were getting underway. It was a great time to segue from near-term priorities and action items that the Let's Talk program identified to a larger long-term 20-year vision for a sub-area plan. Another plan that we look to when we start is the existing plan documentation at a sub-area level. So the Fruitdale sub-area plan, which encompasses about a third of the overall geography that we're looking at. A lot's changed since this was adopted, right? There's been 2 recessions, there's been a global plague. So some of the context obviously has evolved. That being said, a lot of those primary concepts are still the same issues that we're dealing with today. So it's concepts that were identified in the Fruitdale plan around revitalization and redevelopment of 44th Avenue, the desire to improve and maintain the conditions of properties both on the residential and commercial side throughout the area, prioritizing pedestrian safety and traffic flow, and then leveraging, as Jay mentioned in the approach to the project, those existing community assets from all of the great parks, Prospect, Anderson, Fruitdale, the historic park, Bauhaus, all the great things that the area already has, using those as existing anchors to think about stability and change moving forward. On the technical side, 2 of the points of the technical quantitative analysis which were identified in the city's RFP were around transportation and the market and the economy. Going through the initial documentation of those conditions, we're really at a point where we're starting to say so what about those, right? Taking the analysis and the data and translating that to what that actually means for the community. So on the transportation side, it's really focusing around key intersections and exploring those in greater detail to make sure that we're addressing pedestrian safety and tiered recommendations to achieve that. As I mentioned earlier, the importance of inter and intra connectivity, inter being between, so the area between the larger community and intra within, so intramurals, intramurals, so connectivity throughout being a key piece of this. And taking that kind of more detailed look, moving forward, further intersection analysis would be performed to look at how safety might be addressed as land uses potentially change. On the market and economic side, we're in the process of aggregating both economic and land use opportunity, which were identified through a number of metrics around floor area ratios, land value, building square footages, and things of that nature, and pairing that with community character metrics, which are a little more qualitative in nature, and what we're hearing from the community in terms of their priorities to determine what areas might be supported from additional economic development or areas of potential change. Larger opportunity areas when we look at are being solely explored and identified where a number of parcels may be appropriate to come together to create a larger vision. And as that is further explored, there's additional data that needs to go into that, conversations with land use owners, things that we're really on the front end now, and to make sure we're pointing in the right direction as we move forward to determine that type of feasibility. Overall, if we were going to put all of the existing conditions analysis into a couple of neat bullet points for you, there's certainly, it seems to be a clear need for land use direction in both the corridor and the sub-area to make sure that where appropriate, there's consistency to provide clarity and better expectations for not just the community, but for the city and potential developers. As it relates to 44th Avenue, as Jay mentioned, 2 lanes in each direction, that's not changing. So what the city has purview over in the right-of-way is actually rather restricted. So change to the public realm and quality of the pedestrian environment is really going to be based on partnerships with the private realm. That there's going to be likely an appropriate range of housing types and scales to address needs, and that their infill component of that would need to be compatible with adjacent uses. There's a desire for further reinvestment in our existing commercial and retail, and then to underscore it once more, safety will need to be addressed through multiple avenues. It's not just crossings, it's thinking about mobility a bit more comprehensively, about appropriate land use adjacencies and things of that nature. Moving into the engagement, as Jay mentioned, phase 1 of the engagement strategy was based off kind of 5 major pieces, in addition to the Let's Talk program, an advisory committee, which was built off of business owners, residents, and organizational representation, in part guided by recommendations from council representation in this area. 4 resident and business focus groups, a joint open house with the Let's Talk program, online activities at What's Up Wheat Ridge, a survey and mapping exercise, and then an intercept event at the rec center. So we're getting a great range of different inputs and insights to how people use and move through this area. Some of the examples of how we've been capturing the conversations with our advisory committee are live wall graphic recording, so sketching with the advisory committee to make sure we're capturing the important aspects when we move into both analysis and recommendations. Y'all can see Joe's big neon pizza sign that's being recommended over the Clear Creek Bridge. Focus groups on a mural board, so a little more live transcription of important areas. You can see that clustering of orange or concerned notes over towards the truck stop. You can see other aspects that these focus groups are noting in terms of importance of preservation and change. And the themes from those conversations were about supporting the existing character through compatible development and where appropriate preservation in certain areas, safe and signalized crossings along 44th, knowing that there's a 1.5 mile stretch of no signals from Kipling down to the on-ramp down past Tabor. Supporting and expanding on local retail. We have great businesses there today, but there's the idea that more business could be attracted to support the needs of existing community members, and we're working through all the ways to achieve that. As I mentioned, safety once more, and then that last piece there, defining really those areas of potential change or economic development to support either new residential or new retail, but maintaining a vision focused on character, safety, and experience. Last few slides here on the engagement side, and I'll hand it to Jay to wrap up. Going into big buckets, right? We have a bucket of findings from the analysis, another one from themes from the engagement. If we were to try to aggregate all of that into 3 more buckets, we would have one being a comprehensive investment of 44th Avenue. So thematically, some of the things we're hearing is potentially considering more of a focus of mixed use or commercial east of Kipling and more of a residential and neighborhood focus west of Kipling. Thinking about gateway and connective infrastructure at the major crossings. Clear Creek Crossing there, note the little c, so the crossing of Clear Creek itself, not the actual development of Clear Creek Crossing, and then public and private realm reinvestment, and that's multifaceted from pedestrian bicycle safe, tree canopy, and things of that nature. Right in front of Swiss Flower, Heidi's shop, that's a great example of private development coming to support the public realm. Second big bucket there is overall connectivity. additional vehicular and pedestrian crossings at 44th, which we mentioned previously, especially west of Kipling, increase and defined access to our Clear Creek corridor on that southern and eastern boundary, signage and wayfinding really directing folks throughout the area, so when they're not in vehicles, they can get to their destinations very safely and quickly. And then thinking about some of our larger boundaries and best practices and moving past those, whether it's enhanced existing bridges, new bridges, things of that nature. Last piece, strategic future development. The truck stop, as I mentioned, the focus groups was a constant orange circle that we are hearing from businesses and community members. So at a minimum, it's really thinking about safety and how that impacts the community members who live around that area or travel through that area, amongst other potential approaches from a land use standpoint. Minimizing further auto-centric uses. So one of the things we heard is we've got great shops that sell cars, that fix cars, that sell car parts, that fix specific car parts, but we have that piece covered, so maybe different uses to support already kind of the auto-focus pieces of it. Enhancing and expanding on those existing amenities, as I mentioned earlier, really a nodal approach to investment too, thinking about key areas of potential change and preservation elsewhere. And then in the last piece, really focusing on quality throughout. There was a concern about not just the existing aesthetic, but as new change comes, that it wouldn't meet the standards of a higher quality development that the community wanted to make sure they saw.
Thanks, Mark. Moving forward, what we're going to be doing is looking at alternative concepts and recommendations. We'll be working with the community through the summer with those focus groups, with What's Up Wheat Ridge, as well as the advisory group. We'll be doing another community meeting. I'll show a couple dates that we do know or timeline coming up here, but really focusing on what are those focus areas. As I mentioned, this is a relatively built-out area. So while there is some, sort of raw development opportunities, such as at Kipling and 44th, for the most part, we're looking at targeted interventions and what those might look like. And they can take a lot of different forms. It could be improvements to an existing property. It could be an expansion, maybe, of a property. It could also be redevelopment or development. But we expect those opportunities to be relatively limited. So how do we make those most transformative, most meaningful to the community, because they are limited in nature? Looking at those corridor improvements, not just 44th, but looking at Kipling as well, to the extent that we can. Then looking at other opportunities for that north-south as well as east-west connectivity, which is pretty limited when you start to look at the map. Looking at mobility and safety overall. I think the safety component Mark hit on several times, but we heard a lot about just safe crossings, or even feeling of safety or the lack thereof, walking along 44th or some of the other streets within the area. There's concerns about cut-through traffic, so on and so forth. Regulatory support will be a key piece coming out of the plan. How can other plans and or regulation be updated to basically reflect the recommendations of the plan, and then strategic investment both on the public and private side, and potentially public-private partnerships. So I mentioned a few upcoming events and things. So advisory committee will be doing another meeting in mid-June. We plan on doing another round of focus groups in late June. Unlike some processes where we use focus groups just at the front end of the process, we've actually found, particularly with the Lutheran campus project, that meeting with those focus groups periodically throughout the process was a really great way to engage folks more consistently throughout the process. And get some really good insight. We'll be doing a joint open house on Wednesday, July 6th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. What's Up Wheat Ridge online activities will launch that same day and go for about a month through August 3rd. And then, as we said, we'll be doing several Intercept events. So far, we've identified Music in the Park, Carnation Festival, and Dumpster Days. And this should say, sorry about that. Guidance and direction that we're looking for from you all is looking at, is there any discussion of the public feedback that we've heard to date, or any of that kind of the preliminary technical analysis that Mark mentioned? And then really importantly, do you feel like there's any feedback or comments that are missing from the conversation before we move to this next phase? So it may be some concerns, which we did hear from council earlier this week about certain individuals or groups maybe not being represented. They also had some insights on some things they want to make sure that we're paying attention to in the next phase. So with that, we'd love to open it up to comments and questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Stephanie, do you have anything else to add before we go on to commissioner comments?
I don't think so, but we're happy to answer questions.
I'll go to my left. Any comments or questions from Commissioners Larson or Shelkey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, was there a date for the open house coming up
Yeah, it's July 6th.
and the location?
At the rec center.
Oh, at the rec.
Rec
thank you.
center again. We found that to
Thank
be
you.
pretty successful, a good opportunity to catch parents, people in transit, the whole kind of range of folks. And while not in the actual sub area, adjacent to the Kipling and 44th interchange.
No, I have to agree that I attended the one back in, was it
I recall,
February?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wonderful, just well organized, allowed everybody to participate and thoughtfully, not just sort of run in and, oh, here's what I think, and then leave. You know. I guess the first question is more on, and you mentioned this just now, whether we're really asking enough people what they think. I mean, is there, you've got focus groups, and I know you've done some outreach, but I wonder, given the demographics that we have in this area, and there's a lot of, and I'm not sure if the sub-area in terms of multifamily rentals is proportionally sort of representative of Wheat Ridge. I would tend to think there's more
It's
rental
about 40%.
properties in the sub-area than there are in other parts of the city. And typically, folks that rent may not be as interested in participating. So how do you sort of compensate for the folks that maybe not be interested, or just to make sure that we are getting a good take on what the people in the sub-area think?
Sure, that's a great question. I can start on this, and staff, please feel free to jump in there. But to start it in the establishment of the focus groups, I mean, we obviously built off of the great work that Ashley and her team were doing with the Let's Talk program, and worked through what they found to be successful and what we could build off of, knowing that they had a residential focus and we needed something that was a bit more comprehensive. So a lot of cold calling for existing businesses. Some returned my calls, some didn't. A lot of organizational outreach, so talking to the principals of Compass. We have representation of their leadership on the advisory committee, engaging with the administrative staff at Peak Expeditionary School. Kipling Village, one of the two larger kind of multifamily representations under new property management in the last few years. They're on our focus groups as well moving forward, and the representative did attend the open house, and we've been in correspondence with them to make sure that all of their tenants have notification for the processes. We're doubling up with Steve Art on a biannual business walk on June 14th to try and knock on more doors on the business end. It's been, I won't lie, it's been challenging on some of the business perspective of trying to get engagement there. The residential side, I think we've actually been doing a pretty fair job of, and I think we're growing the rental kind of perspective in there with working with some of the larger multifamily groups. But Stephanie or Lauren, would you add to any of that?
Yeah, if you followed the Let's Talk program in the Fruitdale Park and Anderson neighborhoods, you heard us or those project managers mention that they were the lowest engaged neighborhoods of the 6 we've done so far. So we knew it was going to be a challenge, but it's also part of the reason that we piggybacked off Let's Talk. So we're trying to take advantage of some of the inroads they made, property managers that they identified. And we did budget in this project for direct mail to all addresses in the project boundary, which we don't always do. But it definitely seems worth it. So tried to get a little bit more creative with our strategies to try to capture as many voices as we can. Yeah.
And doubling up on that, the mailer for the Let's Talk program, we were able to jump on that in the last, so there would be 2 mailers technically that go out that encourage folks to get involved in this process.
Thank you. To my right, any questions or comments? Commissioner Kearns?
Tell me a little bit about the Latin outreach or non-English speaking. Did you get any comments from people who don't speak English, or were you able to get engagement with Latino, Latin?
That's a great question. We didn't receive any requests for translation. It's a service that we were able to provide through Community Language Co-op. We've worked with in the past for specific translation services, but it's not something that we did proactively on the front end of this. That's a good question.
Okay.
We followed the city's lead on the Let's Talk side.
The postcards have a specific call out that we've designed for all of Let's Talk programs and included on the joint postcard that if you're Spanish speaking to call a certain number. And the city subscribes to a translation service on demand. We bring tablets to all of our public meetings now, so if somebody does walk in and need translation services, we can have a live translator there. So we've been making strides. We have an internal community involvement task force now at the city across departments, so we've been creating ways to accommodate that, but not had a huge amount of folks come to us to take advantage, so.
Okay.
It's a
So
good
we've
question.
tried.
We are trying, yeah.
Tell me a little bit, but I keep seeing this 44th Ave, not a great feel as a pedestrian. I'm assuming you'll have some recommendations for us for 44th Ave.
Yeah, that would
Can you elaborate right now, or is it too early?
I think it's probably a bit too early. There
Okay.
are, a number of different factors that go into it. As I mentioned, maintaining the 2 lanes in each direction really sets a lot of our curb infrastructure.
Yeah.
And our right-of-way then gets pinched by the existing kind of decorative paving that separates the path, and that varies throughout. It goes from a 2-3 to a 3-8, and it's kind of undulating. So I think we're looking at opportunities where it is, we will likely be looking at opportunities where it's most constrained and trying to collaborate a bit more specifically and targeting those businesses for partnerships to address the safety of kind of the width of that. A lot of things we've also been hearing too is that the interconnectivity, the access to the area, specifically from the Bel Air side. Honestly, a lot of the residents who've been engaged in that process, getting down to the area through the existing bridge infrastructure can be a bit harrowing for bikes, for kids, for any number of kind of mobility challenged individuals. So that's another piece that council actually underscored on Monday is an important piece that they've heard from their constituents about expanding how we're looking at connectivity. But so to answer your question in a long rambling fashion, yes, it's something we're definitely going to be looking into. Those individual strategies we're still working through.
The only other thing that a teaser, I guess, and it's based on the community input, is people have been mentioning shade along the corridor, landscaping, buffered sidewalks in some way, separating the sidewalks where possible. And of course, it's not going to happen in one fell swoop. I think Mark mentioned it'll be happening probably in concert with private development opportunities. Safer crossings, of course, is a high priority, and then furnishings and lighting along the corridor as well.
You mentioned shade. The tree canopy map is really, really neat.
Yeah.
It really shows some areas where we could benefit by maybe incentivizing some tree planting and building in that urban canopy. It's a cool idea. So, and there's not a lot of trees along 44th, it looks like. I only see a couple. So to get some consistent trees along 44th would be a big win.
Yep.
Thanks,
Yeah, it's a
guys.
lack of safety and comfort, I would say.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Stern?
Thank you. I have 2 comments. One is really encouraged by the language in the presentation around things like nodes and gateways. And I would encourage the team going forward. I don't know if this is a cool planning word anymore, but to focus really on opportunities for placemaking and not only remedying conditions that are uncomfortable or areas that are a little bit more blighted, but really being bold about what we can do in this part of our city.
Still cool.
Yeah.
And my other comment is on connectivity. So I frequently walk with a stroller from Allison to Anderson Park. It is very uncomfortable. And, excuse me. And the city's making a huge investment on connectivity along Wadsworth, and I really encourage leveraging this process to think about the connectivity network, not just connectivity from point A to point B in the planning area.
Yeah, well taken.
Anything else? Well, I think Commissioner Disney didn't have any comments or questions, so, Commissioner Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Early on in what we are reading tonight, it is mentioned that when you ask people, should we go big or should we not do anything? it's kind of split right down the middle, which really isn't that surprising, but if you make a recommendation and you know that half the people are going to like it and half the people are not, what do? You're kind of stuck, right?
That's why you're elected. That's why we have a city council.
It's a great question. One of the consistent threads, so throwing hypothetical out there, one of the consistent threads we've heard from individuals who both support change and don't support change is the idea of additional retail or neighborhood serving retail or business. From a business perspective, the current population density and vehicle access on vehicle counts on 44th aren't the things that are going to be driving that. So it will be likely a conversation around potentially, if we want additional retail of X, is there a trade-off to be had? So a lot of it, I think, will be in compromise or trade-off conversations with the community to understand, nope, we weren't getting definitely nothing, still figure out how to get us new business, or something in between. So I think the compromise and trade-off side of it will be part of how we start looking at potential recommendations. Nothing, again, final yet. We're getting into the exploratory phase of maybe this, maybe that, to understand, where the community is most focused in terms of their wants and needs. But
this is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but I would say also, if nobody's happy, then we probably did a good job too, kind of thinking about what you're talking about. But I think there's enough, I mean, in all seriousness, I think it's a large enough area, it's multifaceted enough that there can be something that, for everybody in the plan. So there may be something they can get really excited about, kind of latch on to, and they may be unhappy about something else in the plan, to your point, if there is such a divide. But I think that's ultimately the way that we want to go and do something that's great for the community. But yeah, you're right, not everyone's going to be happy about everything.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck, because it sounds like you have quite a mountain to climb.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shelkey?
Yeah, it seems like maybe it's the elephant in the room, or maybe that's not the right way to say it, but the truck stop. The truck stop is, at least to me when I go down 44th, is the defining feature. And I don't know what you do about that, but what are your thoughts on it?
might hand that over to staff. I
Yeah,
have plenty of thoughts on it.
I mean, it's a long-standing business, and that's feedback that we've heard from a lot of people. So we are transitioning and sort of in the middle of the more technical analysis that needs to inform this plan, which includes market and economic analysis, looking pretty pointedly at that, and very eventually a direct sort of one-on-one conversation with that property owner. We don't do any sub-area plan like this to try to relocate or remove a successful business in Wheat Ridge, but we also know that there's sort of the perception that it's a less desirable land use, and also some real traffic implications and safety implications with that, with those trucks on 44th. So we're studying it. More questions than answers probably at this point, but it has been a very hot topic from a lot of the folks, especially on that western end of the sub-area.
Right, and maybe you'll probably stress your creativity to come up with something on
Yes,
that.
we are doing that.
Okay, thank you.
We're quite stressed.
And just to add briefly, a lot of the conversation coming from the community, at least, is not necessarily like opposed to the truck stop being there, but it's around the discussion of safety. So,
Right.
How to resolve that and maybe make it a better environment for everybody.
Okay.
I just had one quick comment. I think lessons learned from 38th Avenue, that there was a 50-50 split on that for a long time, and there was a lot of controversy. I think a lot of people thought that the 38th Avenue widening or narrowing was a win-lose, and I think 44th being a major arterial, you did say that with the right-of-way, you're going to retain the 4 lanes because of traffic flow and I-70 and everything else. So I think that's going to be a big help if you work on the sides with private property owners. You mentioned that you were trying to engage the residents in the multifamily. How about the property owners of those multifamily complexes? Have you been able to contact them directly at all?
Yeah, we're equally trying to engage property owners, tenants, business owners, all sort of across the board. They have engaged to varying degrees, but
Sure.
I would say, the lesson was learned for 38th on the staff side as well, and I think we know which boundaries they're appropriate to push or not in this area. And perhaps to your comment, and Commissioner Larson, the west side of Wheat Ridge has not experienced as much rapid change as the east side of Wheat Ridge, and so there's certainly a sensitivity to that. But at the same time, we're getting comments that they don't like how it looks or feels or functions. So trying to respect the fact that folks don't want dramatic change, but they do want some change, is exactly why we're not trying to touch curb to curb, but address those other sort of low-hanging fruit or high priority items. Yeah.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Kearns?
Tell us about the big neon pizza sign and how soon can we get one?
Working on it right now, Will. I think it's in my garage. I just got to wheel it down there. Our advisory committee is comprised of great local businesses, including Joe at Pietra's and Heidi with Swiss Flour, amongst other institutions in the area. And the conversation from the get-go has been very excited and enthusiastic on all perspectives. And that was a fun sketch that came up during the conversation.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate the update, and we'll be seeing it soon. It'll come back, as you said, an amendment to the comprehensive plan for council and planning commission?
So I believe it's another study session. We're aiming for August, and then there'll be another meeting in November.
October-November timeframe for final, and it'll come to you for a recommendation that would go to City Council.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Disney?
You may have touched on this, and I may have missed it, but why is the sub-area plan just focusing from Clear Creek west? Why are we not going all the way to Sheridan?
That was mostly based on the recommendation that came out of the neighborhood revitalization
Interesting.
strategy. Yeah, really focusing on this area of the corridor. We did go kind of north and south some to reach out, to get the interconnectivity discussion in there too.
Okay, thanks.
To confirm, you don't need a consensus or a motion tonight, just comments and questions from the board, from the commission. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
guys. It's great.
So we'll move on to old business. Any from staff?
Just a couple updates from me tonight. Let me find my notes. We will meet on June 2nd. We will not meet on June 16th. Let's get a little bit of a summer break. And then a couple property and project updates for you real quick. Axis 70 West, which is our first sort of big industrial development off the frontage road. That tenant is International Paper, pretty big tenant for Wheat Ridge. And then a PSA, the Parks and Rec Department is hiring seasonal staff. So please send all of your aspiring lifeguards and summer camp staff in their direction. There's a hiring bonus and a stay through the whole summer bonus for those folks who get hired. And then this Saturday, despite the weather forecast, there is a paint recycling event at Anderson Park from 9 to 1. It's free, unlimited numbers of 1 and up to 5 gallon cans. No spray paint, but oil, acrylic, latex, stain, shellac, all of that stuff. That's often hard to get rid of, so go through your garages and pop by Anderson Park on Saturday. That's
Thank you.
all for me.
So move on to commissioner comments. To my right, any comments, questions?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Disney.
Who designed, I know that they reconfigured the exit westbound I-70 at Ward Road. Was that CDOT? There's only one lane left turn onto Ward Road, and if there's semis lined up there to go to the truck stop, I sat through 3 lights the other day because of semis, and that light seems to favor Ward Road more than people coming off, and traffic was backed up on the I-70. Who do I send my complaint to?
Well, CDOT manages all on and off traffic for the interstate. Are you talking about the newer design that's north of 44th on Ward? Yeah, that was a project of theirs. I don't know a lot of details about it, but it's definitely a CDOT project.
Figures, because it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the city was given an FYI, but it was not a collaborative design process because they also, Ward Road is a state highway, so they had full jurisdiction over both the interstate and Ward Road portions. unfortunately.
Commissioner Leo?
I agree.
You know what people are doing, they're driving down 32nd, making U-turns and then going and getting on the highway. They're not following that road turn and going all the way down.
That I could probably forward to our Public Works Department. That's the result of the redesigned on and off ramps, right, associated Clear Creek Crossing? Yeah. But that is more collaborative between the city and CDOT, so that one I can't promise anything, but I will forward the comment. Yes. Yes. Yeah. We have, from Zinnia, we have gotten complaints from them, yeah.
To my left, Commissioner Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to echo what, Lauren, what you said about International Paper, the warehouse. It is almost finished. The landscaping is going in. If you drive by there now, it is a real attractive addition to that stretch of the highway. I think it complements the buildings on both sides. And I really look forward to any other sort of development in that area. I know it's a candidate for some good things to happen, that part of the city. And then the other thing is I would urge our commissioners and anybody else that's interested that has been following the Ward Station development, the transit-oriented development out there, when you approach coming up on Tabor and you're at the Ridge Road intersection, the apartment buildings are all the way up. They're 3-4-story buildings. They need to put the siding on, but it has changed that corner completely. So if you haven't been up that way, if you haven't been by the Ward Station development, I'd recommend you go by there, just drive by and have a look around. That thing is going great. It really is just, I'm sure in short order there'll be people moving in, and it's going to change the character of that entire area for the better.
Thank you. Mr. Shelkey? I just had one quick question. Do you know when the rezoning of the Lutheran property is that on any timeline right now?
No, so the Lutheran property has not yet been listed for sale, so to our knowledge, there's not any
No
potential
timeline.
buyers, and it would be those potential buyers who are rezoning it. So I imagine it'll still be a couple years off till we see a zone change.
Thanks.
A hearing, yeah.
So thanks to staff for their presentation tonight. Thanks for the commission for putting up with me as your vice chair. I'm assuming our chair will be back next meeting. So is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, Commissioner Leo?
This bridge, do you know where that is? Because I can't see it, the writing underneath.
That's on 44th Avenue.
It's over Clear Creek. I will check the caption when we sign off.
Well, because usually you can see it, but there's, the icons are across the bottom, so.
This is right near Christine Disney's house.
Yeah.
On Balsam.
I've got complaints about it.
Do we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion we adjourn.
We have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn, seconded by Commissioner Kearns. Please poll the commission.
Motion passed 7-0.
We are adjourned.